You are employed by Transocean. In April of last year, where did you live?
I lived in Houston, Texas.
And what was your role and job at that time?
I was the operations manager performance, and I oversee the BP account, which was 4 drilling rigs and another, so there's 5 operations I was accountable for.
All right. And was that in the Gulf of Mexico, those 5 rigs?
In the Gulf of Mexico.
All right. Were they all deep water rigs?
Yes.
Now, tell me this. In your years working with BP Engineering, do you have a feeling or impression about whether or not the BP Engineering services globally are competent engineering operations people?
The years that I worked as an operations manager performance was solely with BP, and as a rig manager or offshore I worked with BP before, so I had a lot of confidence in the capabilities of BP and how they manage their programs compared to some of the other companies that I work for. I think they got a big, strong engineering team.
Right. Did you feel that all the BP people whom your rig managers worked with were competent and safety conscious people?
Yes, I believe they were.
We understand, and you told us this, that you were on a visibility visit to the rig, and you departed Homa by chopper, and you arrived on the rig that afternoon, I believe, correct? April the 20th.
That's correct.
About what time was this you were in the drill shack?
I'm thinking it was around 5-ish, 4:45, and by the time it takes us to walk around the moon pool and go down to the pontoons and be back in the galley by 6:30, so that's about an hour and a bit time frame. That takes all of a good hour, so it could have been a little earlier, 4:45. Can't remember from my notes right now the exact time.
Is your best feel they were talking about the negative pressure test?
Negative pressure test or displacement pressure.
Do you recall that your view was that it was a professional, business-like discussion that you were overhearing?
It was, call it professional, It appeared to be a very in-depth discussion about what was going on at the time. And what you mean by professional, there was, it was just a calm conversation. That's a word I can use.
Okay. Calm, cool, collected, no confusion?
Correct.
When you overheard the discussion and realized it was truly business, you left the OIM and you left the senior tool pusher with that discussion, or to assist in that discussion, rather than distract that group with your tour. Have I got that right?
Yeah, it was a very detailed discussion, and I know both Randy and Jimmy Harrell are drilling people in background, and I guess I thought they'd be better off staying there in the drill floor than wandering around down into the columns and the pontoons on a hot day. And if they could provide any assistance, I'm sure they would do that.
You left them so that if there was assistance needed from the senior-most drilling crew on the rig, that it would be available to the drill crew.
Yeah, Jimmy Harrell and Randy Ezel, senior tool pusher and the OIM.
Later in the evening, at the meeting that you've described, you saw Jimmy Harrell, right?
Yeah, just before the meeting. Yeah.
And you, I'm sorry, and you asked him, "Is everything okay?"
I said, "Is everything going all right on the rig floor? Operations doing good?"
And what did Jimmy Harrell indicate?
It was thumbs up, things are good. And we started into the meeting.
Did you believe on April the 20th that if Jimmy Harrell or Randy Ezel had any question about the stability of the well, that they had the authority to stop work?
Without a doubt.
Did either Mr. Ezel or Mr. Harrell come to you that evening and express any concern about the results of the negative pressure test?
No.
Am I accurate in stating that a negative pressure test is a procedure familiar to drilling crews who work for Transocean on offshore drilling rigs?
Drill crews do carry out the program in a negative pressure test.
The negative test is a procedure that's familiar to the drilling crews that work for Transocean on offshore drilling rigs, right?
The negative pressure tests are done in different ways. So again, there's different procedures depending on the circumstances, how you do the negative test. So that typically comes out in a procedure format that the rig crews would line up the valves and execute that negative test.
So the procedure depends on the context?
The procedure depends on the context or how they're going to put the well under negative pressure.
I'm going to turn to the subject of kicks. On the rigs you worked on as an assistant driller, tool pusher, OIM, did you expect the company man to detect the kick?
No.
So for the Deepwater Horizon, the rig manager performance was Paul Johnson.
That's correct.
So every day you and Paul Johnson would discuss activities that were planned or had happened on the horizon.
That's correct.
Paul Johnson participated every single morning in a operational meeting with BP people, didn't he?
Yeah, every morning that he was there might have been whether he's on holiday or something, and I believe James Kent would go to the meeting. There was always somebody present there, yeah.
Now, Transocean has a drilling engineering department or section, doesn't it?
Yes.
If, when presented with a plan for drilling a well, the TO people on the rig or the rig performance managers have any question about the drilling plan, does Transocean allow them to consult with the drilling engineers who are employed by Transocean?
Yes.
And does, in your experience with Transocean, does that happen from time to time? That is, a question comes up with the oil company's plan, and Transocean consults in-house to assess the plan when a question arises.
Yes.
On the Deepwater Horizon on April the 20th, was Captain Gupta authorized to EDS?
Yes.
Authorized by the rules of Transocean.
Yes.
Do I remember correctly from your description of the events on the night of April the 20th to be that Captain Gupta asked you if he should or could or use the EDS, disconnect?
From what I recall, Captain Kirk said a whole bunch of things at once, and to this day I don't know if it was would, should, or could within the information that he was relaying to me or asking me about.
And you do recall telling Captain Gupta, if you haven't already do so, do it.
Something along that lines, yes.